Hi, this is Paul Solt from iPhone Dev TV. We're going to work on polishing this game a little bit so that we can try and wrap it up. And we'll see if we can do that in one video or if there's any more outstanding things that I want to sort of address in this beginner series for working on your first iPhone game. So there's a couple things that we need to wrap up. And when I go to the store, we're not going to see the same numbers in the last video because I started a new project. So I copied the project, so it's got a different app ID, but it did save from when I just tested it. And so let me just highlight the mouse. Let's just prove that it is working. So I'll stop it and run it. So if you're starting a new project every time, you're going to notice that the store always starts back at 0. That's fine. One of the things that we can do, and I probably have a lot of them, if I go hardware, I can simulate the home button. You can see I have a lot of versions of this app. And I'm actually not sure which one is which, but it looks like that's the one. So if I want to test to see what it's like to remove an app and start fresh, I would stop the app, go into the iPhone simulator, and there's two ways to do it. You can clear out everything, so I can go reset content and settings, or you can long press and hit delete, and then if you go in rerun, you should see that things are cleared out. If they're not cleared out, you probably deleted the wrong one, especially if you have multiple versions like I do for every single video. I've separated every video into different sections so that you can start from any point in the video series and pick up with the starter code that I have and get to the ending code. So we can add some golden eggs and we're done. Now what we want to do is we want to affect the gameplay. So I want to get more points when I drag something if I have some golden eggs. So let's go ahead and tweak our points algorithm to use the store. And so the game view controller doesn't know anything about the store. So we'll add a property here to have a reference to it. So we'll do a non-atomic weak. We don't need to own it. And we just want to reference the store. And that will give us that. So we're going to pass it over and we'll import store here. Actually, a better thing to do right now is to do a forward declaration. So declare the store class, and then in the implementation file at the top, we will import store. And I don't remember if I did that in the view controller class. It looks like that's just in that one portion, and then in the store view controller, let's see. We could have done a forward declaration here. So in store view controller, what I'm going to do is forward declare store, and just make sure you spell it right. Then we'll move the import. So I'll cut this out of this first file and go into the store view controller.m and paste it right here. So as long as you're not using any delegates, that should work. And okay, so let's see. Does it like me or not? It looks like it doesn't like what I've done here, so I'm gonna do import store and see if that warning goes away. And it looks like everything oh, I put it in the wrong spot. Ah, we'll undo what I just did there. We put it in the game view controller delegate. Sorry about that. All right, so I put it in the wrong spot. I'm going to undo what we did up top, and we got to just cut this out and paste it underneath our other property in the game view controller. So we were putting it in the wrong spot. That should clear up our warning. So let's just double check to make sure that I didn't undo what I did. So we forward declare the class here to just refer to it here, and we actually import it in the .m file. So generally that's what you want to do unless there's a protocol you're using. You can't do it this way, but since store doesn't have any protocols, we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so now that that's done, we can pass in the store to the game view controller, and what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to set it after we load it. So let's move the load store up to the top. So that's going to be the first thing that happens. And then rather than setting it every time we show it, let's just set it once so that we always have the same reference, because it's going to be the same store. So we'll just pass in the store here, and we can do the same thing with the store view controller. We can say store view controller dot store is equal to store. So that will prevent the issue that we had before when we were setting it in the wrong order. So then we can get rid of the code in the store button pressed. And then if we go down to the other store button pressed, which should be down here, we can get rid of this line of code that is setting the store. So hopefully I haven't broken things. If we go into the store, we should see that it's still loading things properly, and we can go to our main menu in store, and that is proper too. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to tweak the algorithms in the gameplay to use that. So where we need to go is our game loop update, and down in here, so this is in our game loop update method, we calculate points based on this constant. But what we can do is we can add some bonuses. So let's add some bonuses, and let's do it. I'll just make something up. So let's do 100 points per time interval. So we'll have to multiply by timer dot time interval. And rather than that, let's simplify this a little bit. So we'll do time interval times some value, and it will be, and that's the wrong place to do it. All right, so that's removing points. We don't want to remove more points when you're doing stuff. Actually, where we add points is not in that method. I misspoke. It's in our gesture method. So wherever we add the gesture, this is where we modify the points. So, okay, so for every golden egg, we want to get more points. So I'll multiply this. Let's see. We'll do an int points to add, and set that equal to our absolute value right here. So we're just going to put that up top. And then what we'll do down here is points to add multiplied by, or no, we'll add the number of golden eggs. So store dot golden egg count. And I want to multiply this by 1,000, I think. And then I want to add the store dot white egg count and multiply that by maybe 100. So they're not as good as the others. And we'll just put that on one line. So that's going to be what we do here. And that's for modifying the point. So let's see what this does. Ridiculously high. How many golden eggs do we have? So we're getting a ton of points right now, just for having golden eggs. Let's go to the store and buy some more white eggs. That won't do as much as a golden egg. So let's add some golden eggs. Maybe we'll have 21 golden eggs. We'll go back to playing, and we'll start moving stuff around. You can see these numbers are increasing a lot faster. So they're going up. It's 40. What are we at? Sorry, that's like 5 million. 5 million, 6 million, 7 million, and so on. If we add more golden eggs, we would expect that number to keep going up. So if each of these was $1, that's someone spending some serious money in your application. I don't know if anyone would pay for this, but people have done stupid things on the App Store, so maybe they would. So let's play the app, and now you can see we're getting more points. And if we were able to get both of our pointers on this, which is hard with the simulator, I don't know if I can do it. It's a little hard to grab both. All right, I can't do it. So that's okay. So we've got the points here. The one thing that I didn't solve, though, is you can actually have negative points. So let's go to the home screen, and we'll actually stop the app. I want to delete it because I don't want all those golden eggs anymore. And then we'll start it up again. So I shouldn't have any golden eggs. Okay, so we're cleared out. So now you can see that when we play the game, we can get negative values. So let's protect against negative values, and we have to come to our game loop update method, and then down at the bottom we have where we subtract the whole points. So what we can do here is we can set points is equal to the max of two values. We can say it can be at most 0 or the current points. And so what this will do, this is going to limit so that if we have -5 here and we take the max of -5 and 0, it's always going to be 0. So if we rerun, we should never have a negative score. So we see no negative values. I get points. They subtract all the way down. All right, so that's the one thing. The other thing I want to fix if we come back to the app is when I hit the pause button still looks like it's clickable. I want to hide that so that the user doesn't think that that button is still available. And so we need to look at our logic in the view controller class or something to figure out how to hide that. Actually, I think we can just go into, let's see. The game view controller is going to know when the pause button is pressed. And if we have a reference to it, do we have a reference to the pause button? Don't think we do. We have the points label. We don't have the pause button. So let's add a reference to the pause button. An easy way to do that is we can just create a new property, and this will be a weak property, non-atomic IB outlet. So we're going to do everything from scratch here. And this will be a UI button pause button. So we do that. It's not hooked up yet. So let's go over to our interface file. And what we can do is we can just drag this to our file's owner. And sorry, it's the other way around. We drag from our file's owner to the pause button. We should see the option here to select it. We select it, and we should be good to go. And so that has that connected. I'll just save both files. And then when we are pressing the pause button, okay, so one sec. Forgot where I put this logic. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want our game controller to actually have two new methods. And this is how we're going to control the logic. So we're going to add a pause and a play button. Pause, play. Now these are going to be in the .h file of game view controller. So we're adding these methods so that other classes can use them. I'll switch over to our game view controller.m file. And at the very bottom, we can add these two methods and add the curly braces for them. And then if we're pausing, we're going to want to hide the button. So we can say something like self.pause button. And we could set maybe its opacity, so it's alpha, to 0. And then if we were playing, we'd want to make it visible again. So we set the alpha to 1. Now, having these methods here means that the view controller can just call the appropriate method when we pause the video game. So when the pause button is pressed, that's on the game controller, did press pause. This is where we would want to this is the pause. Sorry, it's the gameplay view controller. The pause screen is going to be on top of it. So here we want to pause the gameplay, and then we want to resume the gameplay when the pause view controller did press play. So down in here, we will say we want game view controller play. So with that, we should see the button disappear and reappear. So it's gone, it's back. Now we can make that a little bit nicer if we do some animation. So let's go back to our game view controller, and we still have logic running in the background. So we also have a way to start and stop the logic. So we could say something like self stop game loop when we pause, and then we could say self start game loop when we play. And if we just try that, we'll see what happens. So we're playing, everything's animating, I hit pause, everything stops like you'd normally expect, and then we can play and things resume. Now, one of the things I found when I do an overlay like this is I kind of like some idle animations to still happen in the background. So you might not want to stop your full game loop. You might have like an animation that's playing or some idle animations, and you might want those to keep running. So you might not want to stop and start the game loop like I'm doing now. You might want to have another parameter that's sort of like a soft pause where it stops enemies from moving around, but they still can do their animations, or there's still particle effects or something like that. So with that, I want to show you how we can animate this. And it's really simple. We can use the UI animation stuff to do it. So we do UI view, animate, and then we want to select with animations, and we'll do 0.5, I think is a good value to work with. We do an animation block here, which is just a up arrow and then the curly brace, and then we'll move the pause code to change the alpha here, and we'll do the same type of thing down here. So I'll just copy and paste this. We'll insert that in the inside and then finish the function call. So pause the video, add this code right here. Hopefully that will get you started. And let's test it out. All right, so let's test this out. I hit play, I hit pause, we get a fade out, and it fades back in. Okay, so now some of you might be concerned if this was like a very interactive app and I hit play and the gameplay starts and I get spawn killed, that would be unfortunate. So we want to protect against that. When I hit play, I don't want the penalties to be happening until the animation is over. And so here, what I'm going to try and do is I don't want to start the game loop right away. I want to use a function with the animate with duration where we can say, give me a completion block. And so we do the up arrow and then bool finished. And then we do our block down here, and then we can end our function call. And rather than starting the game loop before the animation completes, we'll actually start it after it completes. And so doing this should be a little bit more fair to your players who pause the game because they're like getting a phone call or something came up and they don't want to die, and they'll hit play and then it won't start the animation. So let's get some points so that you can see that when I hit pause, everything stopped. We hit play. This number should not change until the view fully goes up in half a second. And there it goes. So that's going to be a lot better. You could even incorporate like a countdown, something like tilt to live to something like that, so that you can prevent it from going too quick. We can buy some golden eggs. That's going to give us a lot more points. We come back to play. I move this around, and wow, 1,000 points times 3 is a good bonus. All right, so let's just check out. We've got a main menu screen, which you could put an image view behind and really customize your game. So what we've focused on so far is a simple game with some different screens that we can transition between. So over the course of all of these videos, we've built the functionality to show these different screens, to hide them, to switch between them. We have the ability to save and load a store that has in-app purchasables that we can have in our application, and we can keep track of that, and we remember how many the user has so we don't forget between sessions. We can hit the done button. We've worked with the delegate protocols to hook up our different screens. If I go to the play screen, we have our game running, and it looks like it is paused right now. Well, that's interesting. So we somehow were able to get into the game, and the game is not running. So that is something we do want to fix. So right when the view does appear, let's make sure that we start the game loop. And it looks like we only start it once, and that's probably not the best place to start it. So let's start the game when it is now visible. So view did appear is the method that we'll want to use. We need to make sure we make a super call, view did appear, animated, and then we can start our game loop, self start game loop. And so we would have never discovered this until we added the pause feature. So sometimes when you're adding new features, you can break old features, and it's just something that you have to test out. So let's pause. Let's go back to the menu, play. I think that's how I reproduced. And we don't have a pause button, so that's kind of a problem. So let's make sure that instead of calling start game loop, let's call our play method. That seems to make a whole lot more sense because there's extra logic in that. So we'll play, we'll pause, we'll go back to the main menu. This is a point where you could reset the gameplay, and then you can come back in and our pause button is back so that we can get to our store. We can be finished the store. We can resume the game. We can pause it. We can resume the game. We have no points. Get some points, pause it, hit play, it resumes, and we're good to go. So what we've learned allows us to really leverage UIKit, all the animations that you can use, all of the images that you can use. You can see we're using a custom image here. We're using custom images in the store screen. We're overlaying all of this stuff. If I wanted the store screen to be transparent, all I need to do is come into the view controllers XIB file and change it from a dark gray to other, which gives me a color picker, and I can make this a dark gray that is transparent. And if we do something like this, we can easily customize our user interface using built-in features with StoreKit. Now you can see that we have other views behind it. We can go to play, we can hit pause, we can go to store, and you can see that we have all these view controllers layered on top of each other. So that's the benefit of doing your UI using UIKit, is because you can leverage all of the power of UIKit. You can use table views, you can use buttons, you can use UI image views. You can customize all these things and you can make them transparent and put them on top of each other. So that's some of the really cool stuff. I'll undo that change and rerun it so that we don't have the store screen going on top. Now here you would want to customize your background on the store screen. You'd want to customize your buttons a little bit more, but this is the core functionality and here's your game. Now this game window doesn't need to be this simple game that we've created in this video series. You could incorporate Cocos 2D or you could incorporate SpriteKit and really build out a real game using that. Now, that's not to say that this isn't a real game. It's probably not a game that a lot of people would want to play, but it's a good educational experience that we've been able to sort of step through all of the processes for creating these different screens, creating some simple gameplay logic, working with a game run loop, which is actually a really important thing that you need to understand when you come into the game programming world, because that run loop is going to be where we update things, where we check for collisions. And when in this simple game, we're not checking for collisions yet. That's a future feature that we could add. We're not right now working with the UI dynamics. That's, again, a future thing that we could add. We could make our menus, when they pop in, a lot more playful if we use UI dynamics to add some physical interactions like I demoed with the first app. And so these are all things that we can add on. And this is it for right now with this tutorial. I do hope to come back and add some more videos. And I hope this gets you started making a simple game on iPhone. If you have any other questions, you can post them in the comments or post a question. Send me an email at paulsolt@iphonedev.tv. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's just Paul Solt. On YouTube, you can find me there and subscribe.